Looks like I might catch some company here with the pups. They better not get in my way. Ah, Ranger's peeing. Bad potty. Leave it, Moxie. Make my pecs look bigger. Bah, 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 bah. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Go Headquarters podcast. I am Brandon Rahi, bringing you pacing for Murph. So before I get to that, quick update. Thank you all very much for our check-ins for charity. Those are going really, really well. We want to keep that momentum going. For the month of April 2017, we are donating to the Betty Griffin House, and we're trying to keep everything as local as we can every month. So far we're doing that spot on, which is awesome. So hashtag check-in for charity, hashtag GoHQ, hashtag GoDonate. Any of those hashtags work on your Facebook or Instagram social media platforms. So keep those check-ins coming. We love seeing the creative photos and everything. So keep that up, guys. Murph. For most of you, this does not need an introduction. This is coming up in about 8 weeks, roughly, from when this podcast will be aired. So last year, I did a breakdown of how to partition for Murph. And that was referring to the 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats. We talked about partitioning that. So today, I want to add to that and talk more about pacing and how improperly pacing can create a deficit for you for such a long workout and actually end up taking more away from you at the end because you came out too hot. So real quick, basic formula that I tend to use when I'm trying to determine how long workouts are going to take people to perform. So I'm going to take my known time per task. Let's say wall balls. Most of you that have done fit camp with me have heard me say it takes 1 minute to do 30 wall balls. That's assuming it's unbroken and there isn't some sort of strategic skill error within that, right? You didn't fumble the ball or whatever. So I know that the cycle rate of that move is 2 seconds per repetition. That's assuming you're meeting the standards. So, and then let's say we're gonna multiply that by the volume of tasks. So if we're gonna do one set of 30 reps, I know that's gonna take 1 minute, right? And I've got my total ETA there. Now for one set of 30, we can go unbroken and there's no other variables in that. Well, then I have a pretty accurate and pretty accurate ETA. Now, the longer the workout goes, the less accurate that data is going to be because of fatigue, right? And there's a million other variables, but mainly fatigue is what's going to change that data, right? So what I usually do is I do the math on how many rounds, how many sets, and how many reps I have of whatever combination of tasks, right? Maybe we've got wall balls, maybe we've got burpees, maybe we've got calories on the air bike. So I'm going to kind of do the math on each of those movements independently, and I'm going to add that up to create what I think is an average round time. Let's say I'm doing 3 rounds of 30 wall balls, 10 calories on the bike, and 10 burpees. Well, if I know that the wall ball is going to take me a minute, the 10 calorie bike's going to take me a minute, and I'm only good for about 10 burpees a minute. Okay, well, I've got a 3-minute round right there, best case scenario. And I'm doing 3 rounds, so 3 minutes a round times 3 rounds. 3 rounds is going to get me 9 minutes. Okay, I've got an ETA of 9 minutes on this workout. That's assuming everything goes my way and I'm performing at those optimal time domains that I already listed. Well, then there's reality, right? I'm going to get tired, and the chances of me doing the 30 wall balls per minute is maybe not that likely. So maybe that's now going to take me more than a minute, and maybe my calorie air bike performance starts diving down because I'm tired. So how much longer does that take me, and so on and so forth. So what I'm going to do as a generic number is I'm going to add 20% in for fatigue for those second 2 rounds, basically. So I'm going to take my 9 minutes, I'm going to calculate what 20% of 9 minutes is, and I'm going to add that to give me a more actual, more realistic actual time. I can still have a goal time of what I set up to be my standard, and on a very short workout, that is more likely. But as we get into longer time domains, this 20% fatigue rate may be more accurate, especially when we get into coming out too hot with your pace. You're starting out too fast and it creates a deficit, which then really alters all of this. And that's what I'm going to get into a little bit for Murph. So very generic formula here, adding 20% to your fatigue for your fatigue rate to account for that. So moving on, Murph, 1 mile run, then you can partition these as needed of 100 pull-ups, 200 push-ups, 300 air squats, and then you go run another mile, right? We talked about how to partition that in last year's video. We can maybe re-link up to that, so check that out if you haven't seen it. So what I want to talk to you about is pacing for this. So I've got a column for estimated times to complete here, your ETAs, and then some actuals, and I'll talk about how we're going to compare the two. So let's say my goal is, and these are very generic numbers, so obviously you need to insert the correct numbers you have for you when we're going through this exercise. So for a 1 mile run, we're going to say, hey, my goal is to do that first mile in 10 minutes. Then I'm going to come inside and I'm going to do all my pull-ups, push-ups, and air squats, and that's going to take me 20 minutes. That's assuming I'm doing the Cindy breakdown. So I'm doing 20 rounds of 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 squats, and I'm doing 1 round per minute. That's obviously like clockwork, right? Around a minute for 20 rounds is 20 minutes. And then I take off on another mile run and I do that in 10 minutes. Perfect even distribution. I'm very even keeled. There's no fatigue rate factored in there. Boom, that results in a 40-minute Murph time. Bravo. Okay, now let's talk about how that really goes. Let's say this 10-minute pace, goal pace for the mile run is a little aggressive, right? We can do it, but that's coming out where I've got adrenaline on my side. We're just starting, I'm fresh because all I've done so far is warm up. We've got 40 other athletes around you pumping really hard. It's kind of the spirit of the day, all these things. And yeah, we actually do that in 10 minutes. We actually meet the goal and do that in 10 minutes. Okay, great. Now we get into the inside work of pull-ups, push-ups, and squats, and we are tired right out of the gate. We feel the fatigue. We feel how much that run just took from us, and now we're kind of on the struggle bus. Well, our goal of 20 minutes here is clearly we're not on track for that, even just a few short rounds into this, and we know we're going to end up elsewhere. Well, this is where I'm factoring in, hey, my 20% fatigue rate is now alive and well and kicking. So now maybe my Cindy performance went from 20 minutes of a goal time to 24 minutes actual. So I'm way off pace at this point. And now I'm so tired from this, just compounding from that run, that my second mile took me 12 minutes. So now my goal went from 40 minutes and my actual was 46. Totally missed the boat, right? Just came out hot, couldn't sustain the pace. These were clearly unrealistic goals for one reason or another. So what do? How do we correct this from coming out too hot? Well, first of all, you've got to be honest with yourself, right? Where are you going to struggle in this workout? Where are you going to excel in this workout? What are your strong suits? What are your weak points? But the main thing is we don't want to start out too fast, regardless of what our strengths and weaknesses are. But if we're a really strong runner, sure, we can knock off some time on the run, but we don't want to be so aggressive on the run that it takes away from maybe our weak areas, which might be these push-ups and pull-ups and squats. Because if we put out all our energy on that first mile, we have less energy to utilize for the repetitions inside. And this is obviously at least half of the workout for most of us. You know, this is going to take us a while. So we don't want to be drained coming in the door from that first run. If you are drained coming in the door from the first run, you're probably going to experience a lot of negative thoughts coming into your mind while you're going through these motions because you came out too fast. So being honest with yourself, really assessing, hey, what are your run abilities in the first place? Is a 10-minute mile comfortable? Or are you really more comfortable at a 12-minute mile pace? If the answer is, yeah, I'm more comfortable at a 12-minute mile than a 10-minute mile, and you couldn't sustain a 10-minute mile for 40 minutes, because keep in mind, our initial goal time, let's say, is 40 minutes, maybe it's an hour. Can you keep that kind of energy exertion pace up for an hour of anything, of any type of activity? Well, if the answer is no, well then we're too fast. If we aren't sustaining our pace, I don't care what we're doing, what activities, what exercises, it's too fast. You need to pace so that you're a little more even keeled for the entire duration of the workout, whether that's 40 minutes, 46 minutes, or an hour and a half. You need to set up a pace that allows you to continue, where you don't fall off a cliff and there's all of a sudden a 20% slowdown rate. We don't want to be able to detect that easily. So let me rewire this a little bit. I'm going to get rid of these initial ETA goals because they're causing us issues. They're not realistic. We came in at 46 minutes, but we're not happy with how that 46 minutes feels. It feels terrible, right? We fell way off here. We were struggling the whole time. We never felt like we were in good shape for this workout. We didn't feel ready because we just got hammered after that first mile run. So let's revamp these numbers at more comfortable levels and maybe see what happens. So the main thing we need to adjust is that first mile, right? Now let's take this 46. Keep in mind, we're not happy with that performance, right? It's nowhere near our real goal based on testing. So we tested out a bunch of things and we feel like that 40 minutes wasn't too far out of reach, but when we tried to go that fast, we just weren't gonna be able to keep up. So let's not default all the way down to 46. Let's still maybe have an obtainable, realistic goal. So let's maybe put a goal up of 44 minutes. Let's shave a couple minutes off of this, but we're not so aggressive with that 40. Okay, so how are we gonna split this up? The main thing, in my opinion, that you need to do is take off time off that first mile. You can always go faster the second half if you have that much energy to spare. In my experience as an athlete and coaching, most people don't go faster later on in their event, in their workout, in their race, because they come out too hot. But a lot of the elite athletes on distance events, like marathon runners, they will actually have faster splits per mile later in the race than they do in the beginning. And that's because they have applied this type of philosophy through their career and they excel at it. So let's take that first mile and maybe do a 12-minute mile for that first mile. So now we've reduced our pace by 20%. And so now we're like casual and we've maybe got energy to spare coming into the pull-ups, push-ups, and squats. Awesome, we're feeling good. Now we can maybe go at that 1 minute pace we were talking about earlier, because that's what we've done in testing now that we didn't come out so hot. But let's build in a little buffer here anyway. So let's maybe go with 22 minutes for good measure. Right? So that's still got a little buffer there from that 20-minute lofty goal we had earlier. So let's say we did a 12-minute mile, we did a 22-minute Cindy. So we are at 34 minutes. So we've got 10 minutes for that second mile run. So this is maybe where we shine, right? We make up ground, we conserved on our energy, and we don't feel like we're completely toast at the end. Keep in mind, this is one example, guys. We could break down this math 1,000 different ways for every single one of you. So you need to be honest with yourself about how this breaks down. Maybe we go 11 here and 11 here. Or maybe we go 12 here, 12 here, and then we try to go super fast in the middle because that's our strong suit and we're terrible at running. So this can be catered to each of you as an athlete. So again, know what your strengths and weaknesses are and like cater to that, but don't burn yourself out in the wrong spot anywhere through this process. And you may be partitioning this middle phase out. We talked about that in the other video, and that's fine too. But calculate like what your averages are for the first mile run to buy in, the meet in the middle, and then of course that second mile. And that's how you're gonna get your overall goal times. But my main point of this entire episode is do not come out too hot on the first mile, which then wipes you out for the rest. And that is hard to calculate on the fly. We're doing a lot of counting in Murph. It's a really long workout. You don't want to like mix yourself up or talk yourself out of things in the middle of the workout. So I would have a good game plan coming in. Now, how do you develop a really good game plan? Obviously, you can take any tips you just learned here on pacing and kind of doing the math on calculations for what's going to result in what. But ultimately, you need to test this. So if you're doing the Cindy approach to the pull-ups, push-ups, and air squats inside, I would test with a minimum of 5 rounds And you can test all the way up to a full 20-round performance in testing, that's fine. But I wouldn't test and calculate average round times with only one round. So if you literally say 3, 2, 1, go, and you do 5 pull-ups, 10 push-ups, 15 air squats, stop the clock. And you're like, okay, that took me 1 minute and 5 seconds. That's not an accurate representation of an average round time. I think you need to practice running a little bit first to pre-fatigue your system a little bit, have the heavier breathing, taxed and everything. Then do at least 5 rounds and calculate how long that 5-round chunk of exertion took you. So if you realize that, hey, I did 5 rounds and it took me 10 minutes, I'm averaging 2 minutes per round, and then you can extrapolate it from there. Now, obviously, when we do a full 20 rounds, maybe that 20% rule I mentioned earlier applies to that, because we tested a very small sample of only 5 rounds, and now we're doing 20, right? That's 4 times the volume. So test different volumes to get more accurate data. Data is awesome. I'm always big on that, collecting data. How much can you do? How fast can you do it? Blah, 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 blah. So the more data you have to draw from, the more clear your evidence is to make decisions and move forward, just like any science experiment. So anyway, that's some pace talk for Murph. Don't come out too hot. That first mile sucks us all in. We all want to go fast while we're fresh, and it's 3, 2, 1, go, and it's Memorial Day, and it's a hero workout. Try not to fall too much into that trap. Use that adrenaline later once you make it back inside and you're on the pull-up bar and you're trying to bang out 10 push-ups at a time. And then that second mile is really where the struggle bus tends to hit most of us. So hopefully that second mile doesn't feel that way. If we can conserve enough to get to that point, that's how we know we did a good job. And then that second mile, you go as fast as you friggin' want to. You're through the majority of the work, and see how quick you can go at that point. That's it for this episode. So definitely looking forward to seeing you guys practice Murph here at Go headquarters. Some of you are already doing that. That's awesome. We've seen some more vests in play this year. So that's another tip. If you're planning on wearing a vest, order early. You don't want to try to order one the last week or 2 weeks out, because everyone will be ordering vests all of a sudden. So they're going to be out of stock, out of your size. It's going to get delayed. It won't get here in time, and you don't have time to practice. So over the next 7, 8 weeks, definitely play with some of these strategies, get some reps in, build up that push-up capacity. If you're not good at running, build your running capacity so that it doesn't draw as much from you when you do it in real time. And that's it. Keep those check-ins coming. Thanks for tuning in, guys, and we will see you next time.